My father raised his glass and said the one thing I'd paid him never to say. The room went quiet. 23 people, all holding wine, all staring at me. The turkey sat steaming in the center of the table, untouched. My sister's smile froze mid-laugh. My mother's hand trembled against her napkin. "Let's toast," Dad said, his voice warm and proud, to Jordan. "The most successful person at this table. The one who made all of this possible." I stopped breathing. For 6 years, I'd sent money in silence. Monthly transfers labeled gift or loan that were never gifts and never repaid. I'd covered my brother's mortgage when he lost his job. Paid my sister's credit card debt 3 times. Funded my parents' kitchen remodel, their new car, my nephew's private school tuition. I lived in a small apartment downtown, drove a 10-year-old sedan, and told everyone I worked in finance consulting. They believed I was barely scraping by. They believed they were the successful ones. And I let them believe it because it was easier than explaining why I didn't want applause for doing what family was supposed to do. But that toast, delivered in front of aunts, uncles, cousins, people who had no idea, shattered the illusion in one careless sentence. Before I go any further, hit that like button right now, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and subscribe because what happens next is going to blow your mind. My cousin Diane was the first to break the silence. "Wait, Jordan? I thought you were." Struggling, my sister finished, her voice tight. "We all thought that." My Uncle Dave leaned forward, squinting. "What do you do again?" I set my glass down slowly. The condensation left a ring on the tablecloth. "I'm a senior investment analyst," I said. "I manage portfolios for private clients." "Portfolios," my mother repeated, like the word tasted strange. My father's smile wavered. He realized his mistake too late. "Well, I just meant." "You meant," I said quietly, "that I've been paying for this table. This meal. This house." The room temperature dropped 10 degrees. My brother laughed nervously. "Come on, Jordan. Don't make it weird." But my sister's face had gone pale. She knew. She'd always known. "You told me you were doing okay," she whispered. "You said the money didn't matter." "It didn't," I said. "Until you spent it on a vacation to Bali and told everyone you saved up for it yourself." Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. My mother's voice cracked. "Jordan, we didn't know you were keeping track." "Keeping track?" I pulled my phone from my pocket, opened the banking app, and turned the screen toward the table. The spreadsheet was clean, color-coded, merciless. Every transfer. Every date. Every lie. $4,200 to Dad for the car. $8,000 to my sister for emergency dental work that turned into designer furniture. $12,000 to my brother for mortgage payments he told his wife came from a bonus. $3,500 to Mom for the cruise she said was a gift from a friend. The list scrolled. And scrolled. Total, $147,000 over 6 years. My aunt gasped. My uncle whistled low. My sister stood up so fast her chair tipped backward. "You're insane," she hissed. "You're making us look like." "Like what?" I asked. "Like people who take and never say thank you? Like people who built their lives on someone else's salary and then called that person unsuccessful?" My father slammed his hand on the table. "Enough. You're embarrassing this family." I stood. The room tilted, but my voice stayed level. "No, Dad. You embarrassed me. For 6 years." I walked out into the cold November air. Behind me, the shouting started. Voices overlapping, accusations flying, my mother crying, my sister screaming that I'd ruined everything. But I didn't ruin anything. I just stopped pretending the weight I carried was invisible. And for the first time in 6 years, I felt light. I never planned to keep it a secret. It just happened that way. When I graduated with my finance degree, I landed a job at a mid-sized investment firm in the city. The salary was good, better than good, but I didn't tell anyone the exact number. My family had always treated money like a scarce resource, something you fought over, something that divided you. So I kept quiet. I wore the same jeans. I drove the same car. I ordered water at restaurants. And when my brother called 6 months later, voice shaking, saying he was 3 months behind on his mortgage and the bank was threatening foreclosure, I didn't hesitate. "How much do you need?" I asked. "4,000, he said. "Just until I get back on my feet." "I swear I'll pay you back." I transferred it that night. He never paid me back. That was the first time. The second time was my sister. She called crying about credit card debt, about how her husband didn't know, about how she'd made a mistake and just needed help one time. "Please, Jordan. You're the only one I can ask." $8,000. Gone in one transfer. She bought a new couch 2 weeks later. Posted it on Instagram with the caption, "Treated myself." I didn't say anything. I told myself it wasn't my business what she did with the money. I told myself that's what family did. You helped. You didn't ask questions. You didn't keep score. But I did keep score. Not because I wanted to, but because the requests never stopped. My mother needed money for a kitchen remodel. My father's car broke down, needed a new transmission, then a new car entirely. My nephew's private school tuition came due and suddenly I was the one they called. Every time, it was framed as temporary. Every time, it was urgent. Every time, I was the solution. And every time, I said yes. I lived in a studio apartment with IKEA furniture and a mattress on the floor. I worked 60-hour weeks, sometimes 70. I skipped vacations. I packed lunches. I wore suits from outlet stores and shoes I'd resold 3 times. My coworkers thought I was frugal. My boss thought I was disciplined. My family thought I was poor. At family dinners, they'd talk about their wins. My brother's promotion. My sister's new jewelry. My parents' anniversary cruise to the Bahamas. I'd sit at the end of the table, smiling, nodding, invisible. Once, my sister looked at me over dessert and said, "Jordan, you should really think about investing in yourself. You know, nicer clothes. A better apartment. You can't live like a college student forever." I almost laughed. I almost told her that the better apartment she was suggesting cost less than what I'd sent her that year alone. But I didn't. I just nodded and said, "Yeah, maybe." Because that was easier. Because keeping the peace meant keeping quiet. Because I'd convinced myself that my worth in this family was tied to what I could give, not who I was. And for 6 years, that worked. They leaned on me. I held them up. They called me dependable, responsible, the stable one. What they meant was convenient. What they meant was useful. I didn't realize how much I'd disappeared until that Thanksgiving. Until my father stood up, raised his glass, and accidentally told the truth in front of everyone who didn't know I'd been carrying them the whole time. That's when the room went silent. That's when my sister's face went white. That's when I realized I'd spent 6 years funding a lie, and they were about to find out I'd kept the receipts for every single one. It started with a phone call I should have ignored. November 2017. I was 26, 3 months into my first real job, still learning how to navigate office politics and client meetings. My apartment smelled like ramen and ambition. I had $23,000 in my checking account, the most money I'd ever seen in my life, and I felt invincible. Then my phone rang at 11:47 p.m. My brother's name lit up the screen. I almost didn't answer. He never called that late unless something was wrong. "Jordan?" His voice cracked. "I need help." I sat up in bed, heart pounding. "What happened? Are you okay?" "The mortgage," he said. I'm 3 months behind. The bank sent a final notice. If I don't pay by Friday, we lose the house. My stomach dropped. 3 months? How did it get that bad? I got laid off in July. I didn't tell anyone. I thought I'd find something fast, but his voice broke. Sarah doesn't know. The kids don't know. If we lose this house, Jordan, I don't know what I'll do. Silence stretched between us. I could hear him breathing, could picture him sitting in his car in the driveway, hiding from his wife, from his life. How much? I asked. 4,000. I opened my banking app, hands shaking. I'll send it now. Jordan, I swear I'll pay you back. As soon as I land something. Don't worry about it, I said. Just take care of your family. The transfer went through at 11:53 p.m. He thanked me 7 times. Promised me he'd never forget it. He never paid me back. And 6 weeks later, he called again. That's how it worked. 1 emergency became 2. 2 became 5. 5 became a pattern so predictable I started budgeting for it. My sister called in January about credit card debt. My mother called in March about medical bills that insurance didn't cover. My father called in May about the car, then again in August about home repairs. Every time, the story was the same. Just this once. I'll pay you back. You're the only one I can trust. And every time, I said yes. Because that's what you do for family. Because I had the money and they didn't. Because somewhere deep down, I believed that if I helped enough, gave enough, sacrificed enough, they'd finally see me as more than just the quiet kid who kept to himself. But they didn't see me at all. At Christmas dinner that first year, my brother showed up in a new jacket. My sister posted photos from a spa weekend. My parents talked about remodeling the kitchen, said they'd saved up for years. I sat there in a thrift store sweater, eating turkey I'd helped pay for, in a house I'd helped save, surrounded by people who thought I was barely getting by. And I smiled. Because keeping them happy felt easier than telling the truth. I didn't know yet that easier and right are not the same thing. I didn't know yet that silence has a price. And I didn't know that one careless toast, 6 years later, would make me pay it all at once. After that first call from my brother, the floodgates opened. It wasn't dramatic. It was slow, methodical, like water carving through stone. 1 request became 2. 2 became monthly. Monthly became expected. February 2018. My sister called about her credit card. I made a mistake, she said, crying. I bought things I couldn't afford. Tyler doesn't know. If he finds out, Jordan, he'll leave me. $8,000. I sent it without hesitation. March 2018. My mother. The insurance didn't cover Dad's procedure. We're short $3,200. Can you help us out? Just until tax refunds come in. I sent it the same day. May 2018. My father. The transmission's shot. I need a car for work. The dealership needs $4,500 down. I sent it. June 2018. My brother again. The air conditioning died. It's 95 degrees. The kids can't sleep. I just need $1,800. I sent it. Every time, they promised to pay me back. Every time, they said it was the last time. Every time, I believed them because the alternative, that they were using me, felt too cruel to consider. By the end of that first year, I'd sent $28,000. The second year was worse. My nephew needed braces. My sister needed a new roof. My mother wanted to take my father on an anniversary trip. My brother's car broke down again, then his furnace, then his water heater. I kept a spreadsheet. Not because I wanted to throw it in their faces, but because I needed to see it myself. I needed proof that I wasn't imagining the weight. Column A, date. Column B, amount. Column C, reason. Column D, paid back? Always empty. By year 3, the requests weren't even framed as emergencies anymore. Hey Jordan, can you cover my car payment this month? I want to save for a vacation. Jordan, I saw this couch I love. Can you spot me $2,000? I'll get you next month. Jordan, we're redoing the kitchen. Can you chip in? Family project, you know? I said yes every time. I lived in the same studio apartment. Ate the same meals. Wore the same clothes. My coworkers started asking if I was okay, if something was wrong at home. I'm fine, I'd say. Just saving. What I didn't say was that I was saving them. I didn't say that every dollar I sent was a dollar I didn't spend on myself. That I'd canceled trips, skipped dinners, postponed my life because they needed me to. And the worst part? They didn't even see it as sacrifice. They saw it as normal. At Thanksgiving 2020, my sister looked at my worn-out shoes and said, "Jordan, you really need to take better care of yourself. Presentation matters." I stared at her. At her designer bag. Her fresh manicure. The bracelet I'd paid for without knowing it. Yeah, I said quietly. I'll work on that. But I didn't. I kept giving. Kept disappearing. Kept telling myself that love looked like this, silent, selfless, invisible. By the time that toast happened in 2023, I'd sent $147,000. And they still thought I was the one who needed help. The hardest part wasn't the money. It was the stories they told when I wasn't in the room. I found out by accident. Summer 2021. I was at a family barbecue at my uncle's house. I'd arrived late, straight from work, still in my button-down and khakis. I parked on the street, walked around the side of the house, and heard my mother's voice drifting through the open kitchen window. "We're so proud of them," she was saying. "My son just got another promotion. They're expanding the house, adding a second floor. And my daughter, well, she and Tyler are doing so well. Just bought a new car, paid in cash." I stopped walking. My aunt's voice responded. "What about Jordan?" There was a pause. A long one. Then my mother laughed, light and dismissive. "Oh, Jordan's doing fine. You know how he is. Simple life. Small apartment. He's just not as ambitious as the other two. But that's okay. Not everyone needs to be a go-getter." I stood there, frozen, my hand on the fence gate. My father's voice joined in. "Jordan's the steady one. Keeps to himself. Doesn't need much. We don't worry about him. Doesn't need much." The words echoed in my skull. I'd sent my brother $6,000 that month alone. I'd covered my sister's car insurance for the third time that year. I'd paid for the steaks currently grilling on my uncle's barbecue. And they were telling people I wasn't ambitious. I walked into the backyard smiling, shook hands, accepted a beer I didn't drink. I stayed for 2 hours, played cornhole with my cousins, laughed at my uncle's bad jokes. And the entire time I felt like I was watching myself from a distance, a stranger in my own skin. That was the first time I realized the truth. My mother's comment, "So proud of you both." I'd sent her $4,000 2 weeks earlier to cover holiday expenses she said she couldn't afford. I didn't comment. I didn't like the post. I just closed the app and stared at my ceiling until my eyes burned. Then there was my brother. At Easter dinner, he stood up and gave a speech about resilience. About how he'd struggled after losing his job, how he and Sarah had fought to keep their home, how they'd pulled through together without asking anyone for help. "We did it on our own," he said, voice thick with emotion. "And I'm proud of that." The table erupted in applause. My father clapped him on the back. My mother wiped her tears. I sat there, hands folded in my lap, and thought about the $12,000 I'd sent to save that house. The $4,000 for the air conditioning. The $1,800 for the furnace. The $2,500 for the new roof. On our own. I wanted to stand up. I wanted to pull out my phone, show them the spreadsheet, the transfers, the dates that lined up perfectly with every crisis he claimed to have survived alone. But I didn't. Because what would that make me? Petty? Vindictive? The bad guy who kept score? So I stayed quiet. I clapped when they clapped. I smiled when they smiled. And inside, I disappeared a little more. By the time Thanksgiving 2023 came around, I'd perfected the art of being invisible. I'd learned to sit at the table, listen to their success stories, and pretend I wasn't the one who'd written the checks that made those stories possible. I thought I could keep doing it forever. Then my father raised his glass. And the lie I'd been living shattered in front of everyone. People always ask the same question. Why didn't you just say no? I've asked myself that 1,000 times. Late at night, staring at my bank account. Sitting alone in my apartment while they posted vacation photos. Watching them live lives I funded while I lived like I was broke. Why didn't I say no? The answer isn't simple. But it's honest. I kept giving because I thought that's what love looked like. Growing up, I was the invisible kid. Not the problem child, not the golden one, just the one in the middle who didn't cause trouble. My brother was the athlete, the popular one. My sister was the baby, the one everyone protected. I was the one who got good grades quietly, who cleaned up after family dinners without being asked, who learned early that the way to earn affection was to be useful. When I started making money, I finally had something valuable to offer. Something they needed. And for the first time in my life, they called me first. Not my brother with his charm. Not my sister with her tears. Me. Jordan, you're the only one I can trust with this. Jordan, I knew you'd understand. Jordan, you've always been there for us. Every time they said my name, I felt like I mattered. Like I wasn't invisible anymore. Like I'd finally found my place in this family. So I kept saying yes. Even when it hurt. Even when I had to choose between helping them and helping myself. Because saying no meant risking the only role I'd ever been good at. I thought if I gave enough, they'd see me. Really see me. Not as the quiet one or the boring one, but as the person who loved them enough to sacrifice everything. I thought generosity could buy belonging. But it couldn't. Because they never saw the sacrifice. They only saw the solution. When my brother called crying about the mortgage, he didn't see the vacation I canceled to send him that money. When my sister needed help with her credit card debt, she didn't see the year I lived on rice and eggs to rebuild my savings. When my parents asked for help with the car, they didn't see the car I drove until the odometer hit 200,000 miles. They just saw someone who had money and didn't seem to need it. And maybe that's on me. Maybe I made it too easy. Maybe by never asking for anything, by never showing struggle, I taught them that I didn't have limits. But the truth is, I did have limits. I just kept pushing them further and further away, convincing myself that love was supposed to hurt a little. That's the lie I believed for 6 years. That suffering in silence made me strong. That being used made me needed. That disappearing made me good. It wasn't until my father said my name at that Thanksgiving table, until the whole room turned to look at me with shock and confusion, that I realized something. They didn't know who I was. They knew what I could do for them. And the moment I stopped being useful, I'd stop existing to them entirely. That's when the anger finally came. Not hot and explosive, but cold and clear. I'd spent 6 years buying love that was never for sale. And I was done. The silence after my father's toast lasted maybe 10 seconds. Then the defenses started. My brother was first. He laughed, loud and nervous, the kind of laugh that's meant to erase tension. Okay, let's not make this weird. Jordan's just being dramatic. Right, Jordan? I didn't answer. I just looked at him. My sister leaned forward, eyes wide with something between panic and rage. You're seriously going to sit there and act like we forced you? You offered, Jordan. Every single time, you offered. I offered because you asked, I said quietly. That's what family does. Her voice pitched higher. We help each other. You think we wouldn't do the same for you if you needed it? Would you? I asked. She blinked. Opened her mouth. Closed it. My mother's hand fluttered to her chest, her face flushed. Jordan, this is inappropriate. We're at Thanksgiving. In front of everyone. Can't we discuss this privately? We've never discussed it at all, I said. My father cleared his throat, trying to regain control of the room. Son, I think you're misunderstanding the situation. We've always appreciated your help. But we never asked you to keep track like some kind of accountant? I finished. That's what I am, Dad. I keep track of numbers. It's literally my job. My Uncle Dave, who'd been silent until now, leaned back in his chair. Wait, so you've been helping everyone out, and now you're mad about it? That doesn't make sense. I'm not mad that I helped, I said. I'm mad that you all pretended you didn't need it. That you told people you did it on your own. That you called me unsuccessful while spending my money. My brother's face darkened. We never called you unsuccessful. You didn't have to say it out loud. I pulled out my phone, opened Instagram, and turned it toward him. Remember Easter? Your speech about pulling through on your own? His jaw tightened. I scrolled to my sister's post. Remember this? Hard work pays off. Grateful for everything we built together? Her face went pale. You built it with my money, I said. And then you erased me from the story. My mother stood up, voice shaking. You're being cruel, Jordan. We didn't erase you. We just didn't think you wanted credit. You never said anything. You never complained. Because I thought that's what love was supposed to look like, I said. Quiet. Selfless. Invisible. My sister slammed her hand on the table. Oh, please. You're not some martyr. You have money, Jordan. You make more than all of us combined. What's $4,000 to you? What's $8,000? You don't have kids. You don't have a mortgage. You live in a tiny apartment and drive a car from 2012. You don't need the money like we do. The room went silent again. I stared at her. At the designer purse on the back of her chair. At the necklace I'd unknowingly paid for. At the entitlement radiating from every word she'd just said. You're right, I said slowly. I don't need the money. But you don't need it either. You want it. There's a difference. My father's voice boomed. That's enough. You're tearing this family apart over money. Is that really who you want to be? I stood up. My chair scraped against the floor. I'm not tearing this family apart, I said. I'm just stopping holding it together. My mother gasped. Jordan, sit down. Please. Let's talk about this like adults. We're done talking, I said. My brother stood too, blocking my path. You walk out that door, Jordan, and you're done. You hear me? You're out. I looked at him. At his red face. At the desperation poorly disguised as anger. Good, I said. I've been out for 6 years. I'm just finally admitting it. I walked past him, past all of them, their voices rising behind me in a cacophony of blame and justification and disbelief. And for the first time in 6 years, I didn't look back. Let me take you back to the exact moment it all fell apart. Thanksgiving 2023. 6:47 p.m. 23 people crowded around my parents' dining table. The smell of roasted turkey and cinnamon hung in the air. Candles flickered. Laughter echoed off the walls. Everything looked perfect. I was sitting at the far end of the table, the spot I always took. Close enough to be included, far enough to be forgotten. I'd brought wine, expensive wine, the kind my family would never buy for themselves. My mother had thanked me absently, already distracted by my sister's story about her new promotion. I was used to it. The invisible chair. The quiet role. I'd perfected it. Then my father stood up. He tapped his fork against his wine glass, and the room fell silent. Everyone turned toward him, smiling, expectant. My mother beamed. My sister straightened in her seat, probably thinking the toast was for her. Before we eat, my father began, his voice warm and proud, I want to say something. I took a sip of water, already tuning out. I'd heard 100 of these toasts. They were always about gratitude, about family, about how blessed we all were. This year has been hard for a lot of us, he continued. But we've made it through. Together. And there's one person at this table who's made that possible. My sister smiled wider. My brother nodded. Jordan, my father said. My hand froze halfway to my mouth. My son has been incredibly generous this year. Hell, every year. And I don't think we say it enough. He raised his glass higher. So let's toast to Jordan. The most successful person at this table. The one who made all of this possible. The room erupted in polite applause. Glasses clinked. A few people smiled at me, confused but supportive. But I wasn't looking at them. I was looking at my brother. At the color draining from his face. At my sister. At the way her smile cracked and fell. At my mother. At the panic flashing in her eyes as she realized what my father had just done. My cousin Diane leaned toward me, laughing softly. Wait, Jordan, what do you do again? I thought you worked at some consulting firm? I'm a senior investment analyst, I said. My voice sounded distant, like it was coming from someone else. Her eyes widened. Oh. Wow. That's amazing. I had no idea. No one did, I said quietly. My Uncle Dave frowned. Hold on. If you're doing that well, why do you? He gestured vaguely at me. At my 10-year-old blazer. My scuffed shoes. Why do I live like I'm broke? I finished. He nodded, uncomfortable now. Because I'm not broke, I said. I've just been paying for everyone else's life instead of my own. The table went silent. The kind of silence that hums. My sister's voice came out sharp, defensive. Jordan, don't. But I was done protecting them. Dad, I said, looking directly at him. You said I made this possible. You're right. I paid for the kitchen remodel. I paid for your car. I paid for the cruise you told everyone was a gift from a friend. My mother's face went white. I turned to my brother. I paid your mortgage. 3 times. I paid for your air conditioning, your furnace, your son's braces. His jaw clenched. I looked at my sister. I paid off your credit card debt. 2 times. I paid your car insurance for 2 years. I paid for the furniture you posted on Instagram with the caption, treated myself. Her hands were shaking. And the best part? I said, my voice eerily calm. You all told people you did it on your own. You erased me from every success story I funded. You called me the unsuccessful one while living off my salary. My father tried to recover. Son, we didn't mean. Yes, you did, I said. You meant every word. You just didn't think I'd ever call you on it. I pulled out my phone, opened the spreadsheet, and set it in the center of the table. $147,000, I said. That's how much I've sent you in 6 years. Every transfer. Every date. Every lie. No one touched the phone. No one looked at it. They just stared at me like I'd detonated a bomb in the middle of their perfect Thanksgiving. And maybe I had. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my apartment, lights off, staring at the city through the window. My phone buzzed constantly. Text after text. Call after call. Voicemails piling up like debris after a storm. My mother, Jordan, please. Let's talk about this. You embarrassed us in front of the whole family. My sister, you're being insane. You offered to help. Now you're holding it over our heads? That's sick. My brother, I thought we were past this. I thought you understood family comes first. Guess I was wrong about you. My father didn't text. He just left one voicemail, his voice cold and clipped. You've made your point, son. Now fix this. I deleted every message without responding. At 2 a.m., I opened my laptop. The banking app glowed against the darkness. I stared at the screen for a long time, my cursor hovering over the recurring payments section. 6 years of transfers. Every single one scheduled. Automatic. Reliable. $1,200 to my brother on the 1st of every month. $800 to my sister on the 15th. $500 to my parents on the 10th. I'd set them up years ago so I wouldn't have to think about it. So it would just happen quietly, invisibly, the way they preferred. But I was thinking about it now. I clicked on my brother's payment. Hovered over cancel. My hand didn't shake. My breath didn't catch. I just clicked. Payment cancelled. Then my sister's. Click. Cancelled. Then my parents'. Click. Cancelled. One by one, I dismantled the safety net I'd spent 6 years building for people who never once thanked me for catching them. When I finished, I sat back and exhaled. The apartment felt quieter. Lighter. The next morning, I called my bank and requested new account numbers. New routing information. I changed every password, every security question. I made sure that even if they tried, they couldn't find a way back in. Then I drafted one email. Short. Clean. Final. Subject, moving forward to my family. Effective immediately, all financial support has been discontinued. I will no longer be available for loans, gifts, emergency payments, or any other monetary requests. This is not a punishment. This is a boundary. I've spent 6 years funding your lives while you told the world you did it on your own. I've been erased, dismissed, and taken for granted. That ends now. I wish you well. But I'm done being your ATM. Jordan. I hit send at 9:03 a.m. and closed my laptop. By noon, my phone exploded. How could you do this? You're abandoning your family over money? We'll never forgive you for this. You've changed, Jordan. You're not the person we thought you were. They were right about that last part. I wasn't the person they thought I was. I'd never been that person. They'd just never bothered to find out who I actually was. 3 days later, my sister showed up at my apartment. I watched her through the peephole, pacing outside my door, rehearsing whatever speech she'd prepared. She knocked. Jordan, I know you're in there. Open the door. Please. I didn't move. Jordan, come on. We need to talk about this. You can't just cut us off. We're family. I leaned against the wall, silent, waiting. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry, okay? Is that what you want to hear? I'm sorry. We all are. Just, please. Open the door. I stayed silent. After 10 minutes, she left. The voicemails continued for 2 weeks. Then 1 week. Then they stopped. The group chat I'd been part of for years went quiet. Then I noticed I'd been removed entirely. My mother sent one final text a month later, "I hope you're happy now. You've destroyed this family." I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back, "I didn't destroy it. I just stopped holding it together." She never responded. 6 months later, I got a promotion. Senior Portfolio Manager. Corner office. A salary that finally matched the life I'd been funding for everyone else. I bought a new car. Took a trip to Italy. Started dating someone who didn't need anything from me except my company. And when people asked about my family, I smiled and said, "We're not close." Because the truth was simpler than that. I wasn't their son, their brother, their safety net anymore. I was just Jordan. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. If you're still watching this, chances are something in this story hit close to home. Maybe you're the one who always says yes. The one who picks up the phone at midnight. The one who transfers money without asking questions because that's what family does, right? Or maybe you're the one sitting at the table, invisible, watching everyone else celebrate victories you quietly funded. Let me tell you something I wish someone had told me 6 years ago. You are not selfish for having boundaries. You are not cruel for saying no. You are not a bad person for protecting your peace. For years, I believed that love meant sacrifice. That being a good son, a good brother, meant disappearing so everyone else could shine. I thought if I gave enough, eventually they'd see me. Eventually they'd appreciate me. Eventually I'd matter. But that's not how it works. Because people who truly love you don't need you to disappear for them to succeed. They don't measure your worth by what you can give them. They don't erase you from the story and then expect you to keep writing it. Real love doesn't require you to be invisible. I'm not telling you to cut off your family. I'm not telling you to burn bridges or hold grudges. That's your choice, and only you know what's right for your situation. But I am telling you this, you deserve to be seen. You deserve to be valued. And you deserve a life that isn't built on the leftovers of everyone else's dreams. Before I finish, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button right now. Smash the like button if this story resonated with you. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Seriously, I read every single one. Let me know if you've ever been the invisible one in your family. You're not alone. After I cut them off, people asked if I regretted it. If I missed them. If the guilt kept me up at night. The answer? No. Because guilt is what they trained me to feel. Guilt was the leash they used to keep me in line. And the moment I realized that guilt wasn't love, everything changed. I'm not going to lie and say it was easy. There were nights I stared at my phone, hovering over their names, wondering if I'd made a mistake. There were holidays that felt hollow. Family events I wasn't invited to. Cousins who stopped talking to me because I tore the family apart. But slowly, the noise faded. And what replaced it wasn't emptiness. It was peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing your bank account is yours. Your time is yours. Your life is yours. I don't know where you're at in your story. Maybe you're still in the middle of it, still saying yes when you want to say no. Maybe you're on the edge, one more request away from breaking. Or maybe you've already walked away, and you're wondering if you did the right thing. You did. Because choosing yourself isn't betrayal. It's survival. So here's my challenge to you. The next time someone asks you for something you don't want to give, pause. Take a breath. And ask yourself one question. Am I doing this out of love, or am I doing this out of fear? If the answer is fear, fear of being unloved, fear of being abandoned, fear of being seen as selfish, then that's not a gift. That's a hostage situation. And you deserve better. To everyone who's ever been the ATM, the backup plan, the invisible fixer, I see you. Your story matters. Your boundaries matter. And one day, you'll look back and realize the best thing you ever did was stop funding a life that didn't include you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.